Hello everyone, this is Nick Bianchetta again. We're going to be going over a little bit more on EViews, specifically how to put your stock data that you downloaded last week into EViews, and then a couple of different functions that you can do within the application. So you should be able to see my screen. This is the page that you'll see when you open EViews, the student version on your computer. So just gives a small message, ignore that, click OK, and then you should get this window here. For right now, what we want to do is create a new EViews work file. But if this wasn't here for you for some reason, just exit out of it. You can also click File, New, and then select Work File. So once you're in here, what you want to do is you can keep this the same, the work file structure as dated. The frequency you want to switch to monthly. And then our start date is going to be March 1st of 2016. And just make sure to do this in month, day, and then the full year format. And then the end date is going to be February 1st, 2021. And then if you want, I suggest doing this, but you can see that it's optional. For the work file name, you can just put this name as stock report. And you click OK. So what we have here is this is going to be where we end up putting all the stock data so we can have it all in one place. Because you'll see in a minute that as we're importing the stock data, it's going to open up multiple of these types of windows. So we'll just put this here to the side for now. And what you should also have from the previous tutorial is a folder that has all of your stock data in the 1-year treasury data in that as well. So I have two different here, the S&P 500 data, and then also the 1-year treasury bill data. So what we're going to do, and I just have this folder on a separate monitor, but you can drag and drop each one of them individually into EViews. So I'll start with the S&P 500 data, drag and drop, and I'll go through the settings just so you get everything by clicking next, but we really don't need to mess around with any of this right now. So if you want to just save yourself some time, when you get to this first window here, you can just click on Finish. And then it'll ask you the question. You can just select No for this. So as I was describing before, each time we bring data into EViews, it's going to create a work file. So we can work on one by one actually for now. The information that we're interested in is this right here, the adjusted close. And that's going to be the same for all of the data that we import into EViews. And what we can do is we can rename that adjusted close. That way we're not confused with the other data that we have. So for this, on adjusted close, just bring this to the middle of the page here, you can right click and then select rename. And since this is the S&P 500 data, we want to set this to SP 500. And you have two different areas here. So this SP 500 is what's going to be the actual file name in EViews. I believe you can't have any spaces or special characters, so it's best if you just do SP 500. And then on the bottom here, you can see that it's the display name. And this is optional, but I recommend doing it because it'll make the charts look a lot better. So for this, we can put special characters in. So we can put S&P 500. We'll click OK. And so you can see adjusted close has now been renamed to SP 500. So that's it. We imported the data in here. We renamed the adjusted close file there, and then we can just drag that into our stock report work file here. And so just so you guys don't get confused, I'm going to exit out of this. We'll go with that for now. Sorry about that. So we don't need to save that for now. And I'm going to do the next, the Microsoft data now. Same thing. I dragged it from the folder into EViews. Select Finish. No. Then I'm going to rename adjusted close to be MSFT. This we can make Microsoft. Okay. Then we will drag and drop that into our work file here. Next, we have XOM, the stock data. Finish. No. So as you can see, it's a little repetitive, but this is just us getting the data into EViews. That way, we can use that data to graph it together or graph it on its own. I will drag that over. So far we have Microsoft, XOM, S&P 500, and the last piece of information that we need is for the Treasury bills. So on here, it is slightly different than the others. As you can see, we don't have an adjusted close. But we do have this here. As you can see, the observations are much higher for this file because I believe this is the daily. It's 5 years of data, but it's the daily data. And over here, we have 60 observations because it's all monthly data. But you don't need to be concerned. Once you have this here, you can just drag this data over here, and it's going to automatically adjust. And so I'll show you what I mean by that. If we click on here and we view the data, if we double click the data, you can see all these different inputs, right? All the different days, corresponding number. But as we drag and drop it into our stock report work file, it automatically converts the data for us. So rather than being daily, it converts it to monthly. And we have 60 observations, which matches the other data we have in the file. So now that we have this data in EViews, one thing that we're able to do with each one of them is we can graph it. So we can do that on an individual basis, or we can graph them together. First, I will just show you how to graph Microsoft in this example. So you want to make sure you have that data highlighted, and then you can select View. Sorry. So you want to actually double click on Microsoft, and then you select View, and then Graph. So you should see this box appear after you select on Graph. We can keep everything how it is by default. So we want to have everything is good here. Don't need to make any changes. I'm going to select OK. And there you go. You have the Microsoft stock graph over the last 5 years. So next, what you can do is if you want to graph more than one of the data that you have here, you can select the first one. So for example, we can use Microsoft and we'll do the S&P 500 data as well. So in order to do that, you first want to click on Microsoft, or we'll use Exxon. So you want to select XOM just by left clicking it, and you'll see the blue highlight. And then if you hold the control key on your keyboard, you can also select another one of these files, right? In this case, we're going to do the S&P 500 data. And then you can let go of control. These are both highlighted now. You can double click on it and select Open Group. So what that does is that shows us the data for both of these together as a group. And similar to how we just graphed the individual stock, we can select View, Graph, and we can set up a graph to view this grouped data. So again, we can keep the default settings here. The ones on your screen should look exactly the same as this: raw data, normal observations. For access borders, you can select the kernel density. And then for multiple series, we want to change this to multiple graphs. So those first two are going to stay the same, but these last two will change in this case. And then you just click OK. And what it's done is it's created a graph of both of those data. And if you want to keep this data here, you can select Free and graphing updating off. Yeah, you don't need to mess around with any of these settings. You can just click freeze and then click OK. What that does is it creates this separate area here because you may want to go back and view the data just as a normal spreadsheet. Sorry. It's not going away. There we go. So if we exit out of this, it will ask if we want to delete this. We can select no. And we can just put that to the side for now. Okay, so before we go on to the next step, I'm just going to, we can click to exit this out. This is our group one with the Exxon and S&P 500. Click on the X in the top right corner there, the window. We'll get this. And what you want to do is select name, and then we can just keep that as group one. And this bottom text box here is optional, but it may just help to stay organized and keep track of what is what. So I'm just going to put XOM and S&P 500. And click OK. And as you can see here, it's now been added group one to our stock report work file. So if we ever wanted to view that information again, rather than doing the steps that we did before, we can just select this here. And the same should be true for this. If we want to keep this graph, same steps. So click on the X, click on name, and then we can keep this as graph one. And then XOM and S&P 500. So both of those are gone, but they've been added and saved into our work file here. So next we will go over these series functions, and that may be, for some of you who are familiar with the R software for statistics, it is somewhat similar to that. See what I mean as we go through it. So we want to start by going to File, New, and then Text File. And best just to provide this data to you guys, that way that you don't have to go through the process of inputting this. I'm just going to copy and paste what I have here in a Word document. This is going to be the series of code that you need. So we're trying to do a couple different things here. We're creating 3 different series. And so the first one is for the S&P 500 return. And what that's going to do is take the S&P 500 data from our work file, and it's going to apply this equation here to create the S&P 500 return. So I copied that, this line right here, I copied that, and I'm going to paste it into the command, and then click Enter. So as you can see, after I did that, it added another item to our work file here, which is the S&P 500 return. And we can click on that and graph it if we want to. And so this is showing the return over the last 5 years. So next we will do the same thing for Exxon. So copy. And obviously you may be doing the same as far as the S&P 500 data and the Treasury bill data, but instead of Exxon and Microsoft in this example, it may be whatever stock that you're doing your stock report on. So that's for Exxon. I will add one quickly for Microsoft series. I'll pause the video that way to save you guys some time. Okay, and we're back. So you can just see the only thing that I changed is I just copied and pasted this line and then put the Microsoft stock ticker MSFT, which matches the data that we have right here. So I will run that quickly in the command, and then so you can see Microsoft's return. So we can view that, graph it, and then lastly, the final series that we will be doing here is for the Treasury bill. So we will be taking, and we'll name this series bill, and we're assigning that equation. And then after you copy it from this text, or the text file that's provided through Blackboard, you're copying it from there, pasting in here, and then just be sure to press Enter afterward. It'll move the cursor to the following line, and then you should see we have bill now. You should see a new item add to the work file. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to do here is show how to export, let's say, a graph. So we made this other graph before, graph 1. We can select that. And then while you have this pulled up, if you right-click on the area anywhere here, you can select Copy to Clipboard. And then what you can do is in a Microsoft Word document, you can just Control V or right-click and select Paste. And what it'll do is, I'll show you my screen here, it'll paste the graph that you just created in EViews. And this will allow you to put it into a homework or upload it to Blackboard. whatever you may need to do with it. So that's just about it. You will see with the student version, as you exit out of the work file, it may ask you if you want to save it. If you click yes, it's going to tell you that you're unable to do that with the student version. So it's important that whatever graphs that you end up making, that you export that and put it into your homework, so that way that you can use it going forward. It's relatively simple and straightforward once you have this process down of putting the stock data into EViews. This shouldn't take as long as this video took, but it's just something to keep in mind, that it's kind of, if you're going to do it, you have to keep the window open. You're not going to be able to exit and then pull up the file to finish it later. So hopefully you found this helpful, and I will do my best to have the file with this code here put